Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay. Welcome back to the Shadowlands Alpha First Pass, First Impressions coverage. The Hunter coverage continues with the much maligned, in certain ways, survival Hunter. And what if I told you that perhaps Survival Hunter can play completely as a ranged spec? Kind of, but not really, because it wants to be Rexar, but it also isn't. And there are some changes in Shadowlands that are a bit on the meme side. And we stand here at the, well, I guess we're sitting at the crossroads of where the heck this spec goes into the next expansion. As of course, if you miss any of the live testing, or you want to watch the dungeon run video where I do also test out this pure ranged spec to, of course, the downfall of myself, and the game kind of said no. You can watch that, of course. It's all linked down below in the video description box, the dungeon video and the testing videos for everything I've also done for this expansion, and the previous two expansions are also linked in the channel guide, where you'll be able to see all the stuff that I have done previously and have yet to do, and of course as a living archive of everything linked therein. Also down below, this is your every so many videos nudge that if you use Amazon Prime and you have that Twitch Prime sub token that it does not automatically renew, to make sure you go renew said subscription to myself, to Preach, to Novel, to Talias Nevitel, to Mr. GM, to whoever out there that you watch on Twitch, so that that actual support goes to that broadcaster and not all gobbled up by the Amazon monster. So if you don't know about what Twitch Prime is and the rewards you can get for having a Twitch Prime, Amazon Prime linked subscription, the link is down below pinned in the comments section. But I'm going to go over some basic core things, is what I would normally say right now, but I'm going to show you something that's a bit silly. Now, how silly, you might ask? The first thing you have to understand about this is that it probably will not work. It will most likely not be a thing. It will most likely be a pretty large DPS loss, somewhere around 20-ish% or so, based on preliminary numbers. But, come with me, faithful unicorn. There is a real possibility that this could be something that could be fun for not super high-end, high-tier content, because you can completely play this entire spec as ranged, and it all works except one very key part of this is that obviously you can no longer Raptor Strike. And if you've been watching the previous coverage, or you know what's about to be said here, there is some shenanigans that must be undertaken with weapon swapping for a returning favorite in Kill Shot, which is coded, hard coded right now to require only pole arms. So you also cannot use it with staves or any other two-hander. So, curious that. There are some macro shenanery that can be done here. So I have one right now that is going to, while I have a pole arm equipped, attack, with my target with Raptor Strike, which is down here on this hotbar. Or if I have a bow equipped, it will Arcane Shot, which is on this hotbar. I also have a macro right now where I can hot swap to a longbow. The current one that I have right now is the 7th Legionnaire's longbow, and then start casting Steady Shot. It's just like a temporary thing, because both Arcane Shot and Steady Shot have returned to the Hunter. Now, fundamentally, these spells are here because they're part of your leveling experience of making a Hunter, because you don't become a Survival Hunter until level 10. You don't start learning all of these Survival Hunter toolkit melee-ish kind of stuff until like 17 to 20. So you have Steady Shot and you have Arcane Shot that require a bow. We have a big old gaudy crossbow on right now. But Kill Shot requires, as a Survival Hunter, a melee weapon. So we have the ability to swap back and forth between those and queue up either of those abilities. Now, swapping weapons in combat incurs a 1.5 second GCD that is unhasted. It's a hard locked 1.5 seconds. Additionally, we have the Kill Shot one here, where if I don't have an equipped polearm, it will like this one it's looking for, the specific one that I have named here, it will then equip that polearm and cast Kill Shot. So this works pretty much as you might expect it, where you would have a build that potentially works with all of these abilities. I mean, you have to hot swap over and Kill Shot and then swap back, which could work for not high-end content. You might not even need to use Kill Shot in certain places, but it is a thing, and it could be a thing. Oh, my dot tech, there it goes, doink. And then you go back over here, and the mob already dies, of course, so it doesn't really matter. Again, I do not think this will be a real thing. I tried it out in the dungeon. I died in the dungeon doing it because I was derping around. But you can make a build that does work with everything herein. And the GCD seed, doink. And then you start back up with put your bow back on. And you're off to the races. I don't think this will be a real deal, but I do believe it is a bit of a utility point. As I am jumping ahead in how I made this video, imagine, if you will, you're playing survival and you are pushed out of melee and your aspect of the eagle is currently on cooldown. So you cannot literally throw eagles at people, right? This is on cooldown. At least you have the option to hot swap a bow and not just sit on full focus and actually hit Arcane Shot, 30 focus as well. Same thing as Raptor Strike. So Raptor Strike being 30 focus. It is a heavier hitting attack, roughly 700 physical before armor. Arcane Shot does ignore armor because it's arcane damage, but at only 300. It is far less. And Steady Shot is only here mostly as a catalyst to give me an ability to swap two that I can start using depending on if I've just, bottomed out my focus. So I'm not switching to something that can't be focused shot, for example. But it is also pretty low damage. And of course, you're still auto-attacking when you're at range because you have a bow on. It is a neat thing to think about. Well, let's run back up here. The additional things that are coming back to the overall hunter in Shadowlands are, if Eyes of the Beast, not implemented, of course. You have Hunter's Mark here, which is a bit awkward. Hunter's Mark, we also made a macro for this, for target swapping, where you can move your pet when you move your Hunter's Mark. And then, of course, it'll queue up the first ability on your pet, be it Smack, Claw, Bite, etc., if it's available, to help move your pet around and, of course, cast your Hunter's Mark. It is on a 0.75 second, so 100% hasted GCD. There's been some feedback saying the Hunter's Mark should just be off the GCD, but then that sort of removes the purpose of it even existing in the first place, which then makes it also really weird because remembering it, you can obviously set it up before you pull bosses because you can Hunter's Mark things before you pull. But if you're in combat, for example, and you want to move your Hunter's Mark, having the ability to do so is beneficial because you can do that with just another button press and it's only a half of a GCD. Not too big of a deal to ask for, but it is sort of an extra layer of single target damage sort of amplification that you'll need to pay attention to as you move target to target. Hunter's Mark, not too bad. It is just an extra step, and it is, of course, a 5% damage amp to both you and your pet. A bit of a sidebar real quick here as I start getting into things. There is an awesome Survival Hunter, rather in-depth feedback thread currently right now on the EU forums. And I'm going to ruin her name, of course, but the world's premier Survival Hunter, TM, or a fellow maligned Spec sufferer and colleague, I do believe it's Thyminde, aka Chicken Wing. I was also told to call her Chicken Wing. That's what her pet's name is. The thread that she has created and put a lot of thought into and feedback from other hunters therein is linked down below in the video description box as well. If you would like to read a lot of feedback points from a very seasoned survival hunter, you can check that out down below. Other things on Hunter's Mark is that you're able to always see and track the target that is Hunter's Marked. You can only, of course, have one Hunter's Mark up at any given time. This does go through Night Elf Shadow Meld. It can also watch Feral Druids and Rogues run around in stealth while you have them Hunters Marked. It's also a magic debuff, so it can be removed by effects that remove magic debuffs. So if a rogue has it and cloaks and then vanishes, or cloaks, goes out of combat and stealths, you lose track of that rogue. It will not go away if they just vanish, because it doesn't remove anything. And of course, any healer can dispel Hunter's Mark from a PvP standpoint. Additionally, you have Scare Beast is coming back. Scare Beast works, as you would imagine, on bear, travel, and cat form druids, and any other beast, of course. Because it's Scare Beast, only fears beasts. It might work on some other things in PvP, but it's the only things we could really figure out that it could do. And it has the extra utility of fearing things in combat that are also beasts. Additionally, as you see it on the hotbar down there, it is grayed out because it is currently not hooked up. You have Tranquilizing Shot. This is from the Spirit Beast exotic family. Spirit Shock, I believe it is called. Tranquilizing Shot is 1 enrage and 1 magic effect dispel on a 10-second cooldown that you cannot use unless you have a ranged weapon equipped. I'm imagining that will get hooked up and changed for survival in due time. But this also works to remove things like Warrior Berserker's Rage and Enrage. There may be some other effects that it does remove if they are enrage effects. Obviously, it will remove things that count as magic effects. It does not work on Druid Berserks because they're not enrages, so that does not work in that regard. And yes, there was a comment just the other day that I saw about how hunters had something baselined from their pets, which is a enrage or magic dispel. It's and both if those are both present on the target, of course. But warlocks still can't get their interrupt. Feels bad, man. As I saw earlier, I showed off what kill shot does look like. It does use the little mini crossbow, the pocket crossbow animation. If you do have your ranged weapon, or sorry, your melee weapon equipped to use kill shot, you do use a pew, the side little crossbow there. There's also a little note that Blizzard said that there is a stable slot increase happening soon, sometime in the alpha. We couldn't find the original post that talked about how much, but it was said that it was supposed to be 30% more, 20 slots or 2 pages worth will be coming to the overall Hunter stables. Additionally, this is definitely more of a survival and beast mastery thing. Your pets, and you are as a pet class, may have been noticing that, well, growls on, turn that off, that your pet basic attacks are having, this is mostly a BM thing, are having issues with the ability to automatically cast their basic attack when they're able to. Now, this has been sorted for beast mastery in a way. It's less impactful for survival. You have less focus generation, of course. But if you're in there using your kill commands, giving yourselves focus, or I say if you have flanking strike, which I currently have spec'd, the moment your pet is able to cast their basic ability, it will cast. You don't have to macro it into all of your abilities anymore. It's a nice quality of life improvement that we found out while testing BM. I'll go over that more, of course, in the Beast Mastery video. One thing that I'm not going to show off here because I don't have any dead pets is that your Revive Pet utility, which automatically switches from Mend Pet to Revive Pet when your pet is dead, is a 6-second cast now. Pretty heavy-handed PvP nerf, both for you and for warlocks. If your pet is destroyed, killed, vanquished in battle, it's a 6-second res, which is awful. It's real bad. Survival Hunters also had a -7% aura currently in Battle for Azeroth. That has been zeroed back out. So there is basically a 7% buff across the board in addition to the initial dev post, which for the most part, nothing on survival has fundamentally changed except the added utility coming into play and the weirdness I opened the video with, kind of like that like melee to ranged hybrid that you could maybe do. So the dev post listed many abilities that were just buffed across the board for the Survival Hunter. So Hydra's Bite now, the dot damage increase is 20% up from 10%. Still remains, of course, 3 targets whenever you use your Serpent Sting with Hydra's Bite. Butchery was buffed just a little bit to 88% attack power, up from 80%. Steel Trap saw a ginormous increase. for 120% attack power all the way up to 200% attack power. It is basically a super single target wildfire bomb. Because as you see here, wildfire bomb still has the hit plus the AoE splash 6-second dot, which with wildfire infusion is still wicked fun. I played it in the dungeon. It's a lot of fun. Great talent. This is a huge amount of single target damage with the steel trap. Arguably though, it still could use a little bit more of an oomph because it is very single target focused, and it kind of gets held back by the fact that it also has the immobilization, that utility aspect built into it. So it also is free, whereas Murder of Crows is not free. Bloodseeker does eventually get to outscale it, both because it has an attack power coefficient in there in the bleed that ignores armor, and the auto attack speed is huge. As you gain more and more gear over the time, both your pet auto attacking faster and you auto attacking faster is going to be a big deal. So Steel Trap is kind of there. Steel Trap though, or Murder of Crows, or Bloodseeker all work in the pure like ranged style build, I suppose. But again, that may not be a thing. Tip of the Spear's damage has been increased per stack to 25%, up from 20, which is probably still not enough. I was told to compete, it would probably have to go up to about 30 to 40% more damage. My suggestion is, why doesn't this also increase the critical strike chance of it as well? Who knows? Tip of the Spear and Wildfire Infusion and things like Alpha Predator and Guerrilla Tactics are really fun. I think the build actually, that's what I played in the dungeon, was a lot of fun. It worked really well. I had some great AoE moments. I had some really cool single target moments with double Wildfire Infusion grenades with, say, Shrapnel Bomb and Pheromone Bomb going one after another. So going into the crazy window where I could stack Tip of the Spear to 3 times. There was some focus loss there, because I don't have a lot of gear. If you're a survival hunter, you know that haste is a big deal for you. 20-ish%, and I think I had 14% in the dungeon because of the upscaling. So your stats got to get squished down because I'm wearing kind of crappy gear. That was pretty low. A lot of survival hunters that were in chat today saying that they easily have 40% or higher haste is sort of what you aim for many reasons across the haste board there. Flanking Strike, the cooldown was lowered from 40 seconds to 30 seconds now, but no buff on the focus or the damage that you and your pet deal. Mongoose Bite still remains at 90% of your attack power, which also could be the problem that Mongoose Bite, even if it's fun, and if it feels good, and if it should be baseline, because it should be the baseline hook of how the spec plays, because it just feels the best for how you work around the rotation, is probably still a little bit too strong, and it might need to be lowered to like 75% attack power or so that if you picked any 3 of these, which are sort of spec defining, that combine with your 50s, mostly with Wildfire and Tip, or Birds of Prey and Mongoose Bite, or Flanking Strike and, I don't know, it's still a little bit too strong. I actually ran the dungeon today. Putro from the Hunter community actually came by. It was really late for him, or early. But we both play different survival hunter builds. You'll also find it's scuffed, but if you want to see relative damage ratios on this early testing on normal mode bosses from a tired seasoned hunter and a not main hunter, you can see those down below as well. They're linked under the VOD in the description box. So you can just go to boss and kind of see where damage was coming from if you're curious. But Tip of the Spear felt fine at the damage that it was dealing. At 3 stacks, Tip of the Spear was basically making your Raptor Strike hit as hard as a kill shot. Now, of course, it's reduced by armor, which is, the whole thing you have to take into account here. But kill shot has some pretty big hits, and I was getting that with every Raptor Strike if I could stack it up to 3 times with Tip of the Spear. So it was pretty good. Additionally, Chakrams, which I was showing off earlier in the full ranged build, which works just fine in that one. So would Wildfire, but you can never make use of Shrapnel Bomb, for example. Chakrams was 15 focus now, as the cost cut in half, down from 30. No damage increase there, however. But one more moment on that one is that it has no AoE cap. A small note here before we get into AoE cap stuff is that focus regen should be 5 per second baseline before haste for survival. Of course, you do gain a lot of your focus regeneration from kill command, for example, or if you spec flanking strike, you get some more from there. You get more from Alpha Predator having 2 charges of kill command that you weave through, that kind of thing. Viper's Venom saving you focus whenever you get those procs from Raptor Strike into the free hit of Serpent Sting. Things like that are all about how your focus works. So your baseline is actually pretty small. BM Hunters also have 5, but they have a new passive. You can see it in the spellbook, actually, that doubles their baseline passive focus generation to 10. And we'll talk about this more in the Marksman video coming up next. Marksman Hunters now went from 3 baseline a second to 5, just like Survival. So AoE caps real quick here. To lead in with that, Chakrams, no AoE cap. It still does the damage through the entire pass-through of the ability. It's over here, actually. So when you throw out your Chakrams, any target within that column takes full damage, and then your main target takes the 2 hits of double damage. So there's no target cap shenanigans in there. There's none of that. So it'll do its full damage across the board, which may be where Chakrams falls into play here, even against Wildfire or Birds of Prey, is that there's no AoE anything with this. Maybe. It does its full damage no matter who it passes through. And it's way cheaper now, so it's not pulling more of your focus for its kind of weird middling effect. But again, in Chicken Wing's huge post, there's a lot of overall feedback on how things could fit together better for survival as a feedback point, so check that out if you want more on that one. Because as cool, as neat as Chakrams may be, basically that. So Carve and Butchery, of course, replacing Carve and making it that longer cooldown, heavier hitting burst ability. They're both limited to 5 enemies in front of you or 5 enemies in an 8-yard radius around you. Still 30 focus, of course, when you take Butchery, 35 for Carve. They both still have the reducing the Wildfire Bomb cooldown by 1 second for each target up to 5, because it only hits 5 targets. That is still there. There's no weird shenanigans with like Hydra's Bite scaling, because obviously if you keep spamming Hydra's Bite Serpent Stings, you're going to get 3 different targets almost every single time. Of course, you might hit the same one over and over again. And then Guerrilla Tactics into things like Wildfire Bomb with Wildfire Infusion or not. There's no target cap on this one. There's no fall off damage. There's no square root target dividing madness that a lot of other things have had. If you're not sure, there's a new damage fall off formula behind the scenes on a lot of abilities that say if they do reduce damage to secondary targets, what that means is that it takes the full damage that the main target is hit by, divides it by the square root of the overall target's hit, and that's what everything else gets hit for. So biggest notable one is I-Beam from Havoc does all that to every other target now. So the more targets you're actually hitting with I-Beam, the less damage you're dealing with the I-Beam from like a actual percentage base hit. Hitting 3 targets, you might chunk them all for a rather large amount. Hitting 20 targets, you'll hit them all for a little bit, but you'll hit all of them just for a lot reduced damage. Also a weird one, Spirit Bond, your mastery component for damage on you and your pet's focus spending abilities was nerfed by 3%. I think that's because they wanted to put damage into other things, like we went over earlier. And normally, of course, as I've said earlier a little while ago, is that haste is a super big thing, haste and versatility. So nerfing your mastery's baseline by 3% again is also going to kind of solidify that haste, verse, and then crit are going to be really high up there for you. And mastery is sort of just whatever, which is a weird one because it wasn't already sought after in the first place. But I think if they pull some damage into other abilities, that could potentially be fine. And again, you've gained an execute back, of course, on top of that, which you didn't have before. So that also has to compete with some of where your damage goes, I suppose. Maybe. So this is a weird point. This is just a paragraph I wrote down here as one of the interesting feedback problems with survival, is that Serpent Sting scales down from a 12-second duration with your haste, resulting at high haste at a much higher GCD and focus requirement to keep the dot active on any number of targets, which at certain points, if you play survival, you just kind of forget about Serpent Sting. You don't actually recast it. It's weird because not all dots do this. I'm not going to go too much into all this right here. I went into this really heavily on the stream. Most dots stay at their full duration and then add more haste scaling ticks inside of the dot window. So I wonder if Serpent Sting needs to get fixed and always stay at 12 seconds. And then the more haste you have, the more ticks that get compressed into that time frame. Because as you gain more and more haste, we had some hunters in chat today saying that they had like a 5 or 6 second cooldown on Serpent Sting. That's every 5-ish GCDs at that haste level you have to recast if you want to keep this uptime. It becomes just like a really awkward high maintenance thing that doesn't give you that much damage and really doesn't interact with anything in the base kit except if you talent into 2 specific talents and 3 on a 1 in 3 chance. That's a bit of a weird one. Let's see. There's also some feedback that a lot of people will still want Flanking Strike to be just what kill command is. I suggested from a fundamental look standpoint, because Flanking Strike does have a different animation for you. And then, of course, kill command has the animation for your pet. That what if Flanking Strike just became what your kill command becomes, but works exactly the same way for Survival Hunter? Just take some of the damage out of the pet side of kill command and put it into you so it matches the fact that you have an animation point, and just make it 1 hit, just kill command maybe, or 2 that's broken from you and your pet, kind of like a lot of other abilities that get split in half but then combined into 1 for log purposes. Because Mongoose Bite and Tip of the Spear both have fundamental core rotational build potential, but Flanking Strike just kind of sits here as this is what you used to have as a core, and they made it a talent, and it's not the same way it used to be. It's just high damage, 30-second cooldown, fire and forget, 30 focus, that's it. It's a slight charge. It's 15-yard charge here. Yo! But from a gameplay perspective, everything Mongoose Bite or even Tip of the Spear has so much more that works in your favor to have a build. I had Flanking Strike for the Mimi full ranged build because you could technically run close to a target, Flanking Strike, and then keep doing your range stuff just to generate some more focus as like a drive-by, right? Like a run-by Flanking Strike kind of maneuver. Maybe, because you can't literally use Mongoose Bite or Tip of the Spear if you're trying to do like the full ranged-y survival-y build. And Hunter Pet Play Dead for Feign Death still isn't baseline. You need to go get that tome. It's pretty much required for any content to make sure your pet actually also leaves combat, but it's not baseline yet, so here's hoping. But that is pretty much everything I have written down here for the Survival Hunter. Not a whole lot has changed fundamentally. You did get extra utility, a little bit more focused single target damage with Hunter's Mark, and a couple of your abilities that may have not been used that often got buffed a little bit. A lot of it in Steel Trap's case. But we'll have to see if any more iterations happen. Overall, for Hunters, you don't have any rank up upgrades for your classes or spec yet. There's nothing you're getting for 52, 54, 56, and 58 yet. So that does mean to me that there is still iteration yet to be had for the Hunter class in general. But thank you very much for listening. Again, my name has been Bay, as it normally also has been for many, many years. If you'd like to support what I do here online, check the links in the description box down below. And if you want to support any of the other content creators that are also out there and you have an Amazon Prime, Twitch Prime sub token thingamajigger, check the link down below for the free rewards you can get for different games every single month from Twitch Prime, and also to use your Twitch Prime token resub on the content creator of your choice. If you've been watching a lot of Mike's videos, Taliesin Nivatel, Mr. GM, Nobble, myself, whoever, this is your friendly nudge every week or so. Don't forget about that. It does not automatically resub. That's that. Nothing else has changed. Thank you very much for listening. Let me know what you think of the Survival Hunter, if you're going to be playing it, if you're going to be playing overall, if you think the ranged build could work. I will see you all in the Marksman Hunter video coming up next.